It's always the same. 3 words, simple, soft, but lethal. I need space. At that moment, everything stops. The air thickens. The heart tightens. The mind starts spinning, replaying every conversation, every silence, every glance that could explain what went wrong. Men hear it as the sound of a door closing slowly but firmly. Yet this phrase is not an ending. It's an opening into a maze built of fear, control, and emotional strategy. Because when a woman says she needs space, she isn't always talking about distance. Sometimes she's talking about power. Let's be honest, those words rarely come from nowhere. They're the result of tension built quietly over time. Unspoken needs, unmet expectations, a growing sense of emotional suffocation. But in many cases, they aren't just about self-preservation. They're a way to shift the dynamic, to see how much you'll chase, how much you'll tolerate, how much control you're willing to surrender. It's not manipulation in the cinematic sense, it's psychological equilibrium. A subconscious dance between closeness and control, because distance isn't only physical, it's emotional currency. And whoever controls it, controls the rhythm of the relationship. Most men misread the silence. They rush to fill it, with texts, apologies, or desperate attempts to fix something they don't yet understand. But here's the truth, that silence isn't a vacuum. It's communication in its rawest form. Every ignored message, every delayed reply, every "I just need time" carries a coded signal, one that says far more than words ever could. Psychologists call it behavioral signaling. Humans, especially in emotional contexts, communicate more through withdrawal than confrontation. It's safer, more powerful, less messy, because silence cannot be argued with. Think of it like this. In arguments, words can be challenged, misinterpreted, or dismissed. But silence, it leaves you alone with your thoughts. It turns your own anxiety into the weapon. When she says, "I need space," she might be testing your emotional elasticity, seeing if you'll hold steady or snap. She might be creating distance not to leave, but to recalibrate, trying to see the relationship from afar, as if through frosted glass. Or maybe, just maybe, she's already halfway out the door, and space is her way of making the exit less brutal. The ambiguity is the point, because in ambiguity, power thrives. This is where most men lose themselves, not because she left, but because they didn't understand what was really happening. They respond to words, not meaning. And in this game, meaning is everything. Silence is never empty. It's loaded with intent. Before you react, you must understand the language of distance, because space isn't always about solitude. Sometimes it's about control. And to see that clearly, we must look beneath the surface at what space actually means in the psychology of attachment. There isn't just one kind of distance. When a woman says, "I need space," she can mean many different things, some conscious, others not. To understand her, you have to see through the layers, because space is not a statement. It's a mirror, reflecting where the emotional connection truly stands. The emotional detox. Sometimes, space is about overwhelm. The relationship has become too noisy, too many expectations, too many emotional collisions. She retreats to silence not to punish you, but to breathe again, to regulate her nervous system, to feel herself without your presence influencing every thought. It's an emotional detox. She's trying to remember who she is outside the relationship. And the cruel irony, that's often when men panic most, when she's not actually leaving but trying to find clarity before deciding whether to stay. 2. The power test. Then there's another kind of space, where's the strategic one. The space that isn't born from confusion but control. When she senses you've grown too available, too certain, she pulls back, not to disconnect, but to create tension. Because in attraction psychology, tension is value. It's the reintroduction of uncertainty, the same element that made her chase you in the beginning. She might not be doing it maliciously. This behavior is deeply wired into the dynamics of desire. Humans crave what they fear losing. 3. The exit strategy, and then there's the most painful kind of space, the one that isn't about clarity or testing. It's about escape. This space isn't temporary, it's preparation. She's already emotionally detached. Her words are soft, but her actions are firm. She's distancing not to think, but to fade. This is the stage where the silence stretches too long, where her tone turns polite instead of intimate, where "I need space" is no longer a request. It's a farewell dressed as self-reflection. Each version of space has a different psychology behind it, but they all share one thing. Control of distance equals control of emotion. In relationships, distance becomes the silent negotiation tool. Whoever feels it more suffers more. Whoever creates it controls the outcome. This is why space hits men so deeply. It forces them into emotional submission. It triggers their attachment instincts. Men are often conditioned to fix problems with action, not patience. But this kind of space can't be solved, it can only be understood. The danger is when you treat all forms of space the same. When you react impulsively, you fail the test. When you detach too soon, you misread the detox. When you chase during her exit, you accelerate her escape. Understanding which space you're in is everything. Not every silence is abandonment. Some silences are mirrors, others are graves. Next, we'll go deeper into the psychological framework that explains why women use space in the first place. It's not random. It's instinctive, and it's rooted in one of the most powerful emotional systems ever studied, attachment theory. Every relationship is built on an invisible blueprint, a set of emotional codes that dictate how we bond, withdraw, and protect ourselves. Psychologists call it attachment theory, but in real life it feels like gravity. It pulls two people together until one gets too close, and the other steps back. When a woman says, "I need space," she's not just reacting to something you did last week. She's acting out an ancient, unconscious script, one written long before she met you. Let's break it down. There are three main attachment styles that shape how people love and leave: anxious, avoidant, and secure. The anxious type fears losing connection. They crave reassurance, closeness, and validation. When they feel distance, they panic. They chase. They over-communicate. The avoidant type fears losing autonomy. They crave independence and emotional control. When they feel closeness, they withdraw. They retreat behind phrases like "I need space," and the secure type, the rarest, can balance both. They value connection without surrendering identity. Here's the truth that most men never grasp. When an avoidant woman says she needs space, she's not just protecting herself from you. She's protecting herself from dependence. To her, love feels like gravity pulling her into a loss of self. Intimacy feels like danger, not because of who you are, but because closeness threatens her control. So she retreats, not to hurt you, but to regain emotional balance. For the anxious man, this feels like death, because his instinct is the opposite. Her withdrawal triggers his fear of loss. His chase reinforces her fear of suffocation. And together they build a self-perpetuating cycle, one running on panic, silence, and overthinking. It's not manipulation. It's emotional reflex. Each person is trying to survive the same storm, but from opposite sides of the sea. Understanding this is not about blame, it's about awareness. Because if you don't know which blueprint you're operating from, you'll keep repeating the same relational loop with different faces. You'll keep meeting avoidant women and mistaking their distance for mystery. You'll keep mistaking silence for depth. You'll keep confusing control for connection. You can't heal what you don't understand. Attachment is the architecture of every heartbreak. There's a reason why silence feels louder than words. Because silence isn't the absence of communication. It's a weaponized form of it. When she pulls away and says, "I just need time," something ancient activates inside you. A primal ache. It's not logic. It's instinct. The same part of the brain that responds to physical pain lights up when emotional connection is withdrawn. You feel abandoned, and abandonment feels fatal. So what do? You reach out. You call, you explain, you beg to be understood. And in that instant, the power dynamic shifts, silently, completely. You've moved from partner to pursuer. The psychological principle behind this is called intermittent reinforcement, the same mechanism that keeps gamblers addicted to slot machines. When rewards come unpredictably, the brain releases dopamine at random intervals. One text, one moment of warmth, one "I miss you too," and you're hooked again. Her distance becomes the bait, her silence the hook. You're no longer seeking connection, you're chasing relief. Let's paint a picture. A man named Daniel feels his girlfriend growing distant. She used to text every morning. Now it's every other day. Her laughter used to come easy. Now it's measured, polite. One night she says she needs space. He waits a few hours, then texts her. No reply, another message. Still silence. The next morning, cut a simple "hey." Relief floods his chest. The storm is over, or so he thinks. In reality, the storm has just begun, because each cycle of distance and reconnection strengthens the emotional dependency. It teaches his nervous system that anxiety equals desire, that longing equals love. The unpredictability becomes intoxicating. This is how emotional addiction forms, not from joy, but from inconsistent intimacy. Here's the dark truth. She might not even know she's doing it. For some, it's conscious, a way to test your emotional control. For others, it's instinctual, a defense against feeling too vulnerable. But the result is the same. You become emotionally conditioned to chase someone who only values you when you're far enough away. And this is where most men lose themselves. They mistake the rush of pursuit for passion. They confuse resistance with depth. They start believing that if they can just prove their worth, she'll finally stop needing space. But here's the psychological paradox. She only feels safe when you stop chasing, because the more you chase, the more she retreats. The more you talk, the less she listens. It's not about what you say, Guang, it's about what your silence represents. Rule card: chasing doesn't bring her closer. It reminds her she can leave. So how do you break free from this invisible leash? How do you regain balance when your instincts are working against you? The answer lies in mastering detachment, not as revenge, but as power. In the next chapter, we'll explore how stillness, silence, and distance can turn the entire dynamic upside down and make her feel the weight of her own withdrawal. There comes a moment when words lose their meaning. When you've said everything you could, explained every feeling, and still, nothing changes. That's when you realize the truth. Your peace isn't found in being understood. It's found in being okay even when you're not heard. Detachment isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's the moment you stop chasing and start observing. When you stop trying to fix, convince, or decode, and finally accept that silence isn't an obstacle, it's information. When she pulls away, your silence tells her something her ego can't ignore. You're not dependent, you're not desperate. You're done performing for connection, and that's when something strange happens. The dynamic shifts again, but this time it's you who holds the stillness and she who begins to feel the absence. Because silence isn't emptiness. It's a mirror. It reflects the truth that words often hide. She starts replaying your conversations, wondering why you haven't reached out, rationalizing her distance, then questioning it. Because the human mind is wired to fill gaps, and when you remove your energy, your attention becomes the gap she can't stop staring into. That's the paradox of emotional power. The less you demand, the more they seek your validation, the quieter you become, the louder your absence speaks. But here's the warning. Detachment only works when it's real. If your silence is a trick, she'll feel the manipulation behind it. But if it's peace, genuine, calm, unwavering, it becomes magnetic. It signals that your worth no longer depends on her recognition. You've stopped chasing her and started choosing yourself. That's where the real transformation begins. Because when you master detachment, you don't lose connection. You redefine it. You become the calm center in someone else's chaos. And in a world where everyone's screaming to be seen, your silence becomes the loudest thing in the room. So if she ever asks why you stopped trying, don't explain, just smile and say, I realize I don't have to fight for what's meant for me. Then turn around and keep walking. Because real strength isn't about who stays. It's about who stops chasing and still stands tall. This isn't about revenge. It's about reclamation. You're not punishing her with silence, now you're healing yourself through it. And one day, when she feels the weight of your absence, she'll understand the one lesson your words could never teach her. You were never chasing her. You were chasing peace. And now, you've finally